Welcome to Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richheimer. We are in the middle of connecting. Chapter 9. It is so awesome because as you'll see, as you learn more and more little tips and techniques, and you're putting a little drop here and a little drop there, whatever, as you're doing more, you are going to find that you feel closer to your husband. It's so awesome. So we're going to get into a lot of tips and techniques. Right now, we're going to talk about multitasking frenzy. We are on page 211 in Marriage Secrets, chapter 9, multitasking frenzy. I remember years back, I had an issue with one of my kids. I can't even remember what it was about, but I got on the phone to my great auntie Flo. She lived in Florida and had a different lifestyle than we do, but she is very wise, so I asked her opinion. She thought for a moment and said, "It's a great question. The next time you're playing bridge with your girlfriends, ask them what they think. I bet one of them has a kid with such an issue." I laughed. "Auntie Flo, I don't play bridge." She sounded surprised. Oh, that's okay. That's fine. So the next time you're out to lunch with your girlfriends, ask them what they would do in this situation. I replied uneasily, "Aunt Flo, I don't go out to lunch with my girlfriends." She fell silent. I realized that she was processing the information that the world had changed so drastically that not only could I no longer find time to connect with my friends, but that I boldly admitted it as if nothing was wrong. Her shock hit me like a ton of bricks, but the fact that it was inconceivable to a woman born in 1909, like my Auntie Flo, who lived to 103 years old, that our generation doesn't make time for connecting with friends should at least give us pause. Something profound has indeed been lost, and I never even realized it was missing. If the only consequences of our societally driven compulsion to accomplish were the loss of our deep friendship connection, that would be sad enough. But there are other significant costs that we pay. Page 212. We often sacrifice our health by staying up way too late to achieve more and never really catch up on our sleep. We often eat unhealthy last-minute meals because we don't want to slow down long enough to prepare a proper meal. We never really get enough exercise or have time to relax. We are in such a race to get things done that we fail to take care of ourselves properly. We multitask ourselves into a frenzy that stops us from fully savoring our lives. We read an article while we eat and barely even register that we're eating. How often do we get to the last bite of food on our plate and wonder, where did all that food disappear to? We talk on the phone while we're talking to the kids, while we're taking the kids on an outing, and wonder why we're more frazzled than before the supposedly relaxing activity. We push ourselves way beyond what is healthy, and we pay the price for it. No one ever does just one thing anymore because our self-worth is based on what we accomplish. The more we do, the better we feel about our worth, regardless if we punish our body in the process. Of course, we are more blessed than most because we have the sanctity of Shabbos to bond with our family, but we need to be aware that Shabbos too has been affected. We often push ourselves to make just one more dish or kugel. We pride ourselves on mastering the latest recipes or hosting the maximum number of guests. If we're not vigilant, our prized possession of Shabbos can also be co-opted into the accomplishment rat race as well. The loss to our relationships and our lives is immeasurable. Our legacy. Unfortunately, the greatest devastation from our addiction to accomplishing culture is in our relationship with our husband. Sadly, he is often given the impression that he should either help us do what needs to get done or keep out of the way. Further, since most of the items on our to-do list are there because of him in the first place, we feel justified in habitually paying more attention to our list than to him. We run ourselves ragged trying to get things done and forget entirely why we're doing them all in the first place. We forget the days or years we spent longing to have a husband, a home, and a family. We have tunnel vision to get all of our current duties attended to with nary a kind word to the man we waited so longingly to find. We all know that after 120, when we look back on our life, it is very obvious to us that we are not going to wish we had accomplished more. We all know that we're going to wish we had connected and bonded more with those closest to us. So why doesn't that deep knowledge translate into new actions? Why doesn't this clarity translate into hundreds of daily decisions to choose to connect rather than to accomplish? Don't we want to savor the relationships we've worked so hard to create in the first place? Don't we want to leave a legacy to our husband and children of a wife and a mother who was really there for them? Of course. But when society is telling you that your ultimate value is based on what you accomplish, choosing to connect is going against a very powerful tide. Further, it can often be frustrating and challenging to interact with those closest to us. We might be annoyed at their behavior, bear a grudge from their ill treatment of us, or face other obstacles that keep relationships from being in harmony. Often, it is far easier to tidy a closet than it is to tidy our marriage. So we opt for the choice that will be more instantaneously gratifying. This may not be the ideal, but it is certainly the norm. What would be uncommon would be to shift gears in our life and to make connecting our priority, to revise our thinking to view accomplishing as merely a part of our hishtadlus, our efforts, so that Hashem can grant us the results. What would our life look like if we gave ourselves permission to do less and connect more? Okay. Wow. Questions? Gila.
Okay, great. So Esther asks, I'm scared to connect. I'm not sure why. Sitting down and getting serious and emotional just makes me uncomfortable. My nature is very lighthearted and goofy. How can I get more comfortable having these deeper conversations?
Wow.
Does it always have to be serious, though? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure which issues she's talking about, Gila, whether she means conflict or whether she means just logistic things, probably, or emotional things. Like
she's saying not serious and emotional. She doesn't feel comfortable with.
Yeah. So when that is a lack of safety in the environment, and that is probably predates her husband. Most likely. I mean, maybe she didn't have this, but maybe it doesn't predate and he just snaps at her, and makes her feel not safe. And she'll say an emotion, and I'll say, why do you feel that way or something? And he's not letting her express herself and validating who she is. It could be that also. It's a little hard to say, sort of standing on one foot. But however, there are some very, very clear guidelines that you can use to be able to get over that bridge. The first one is probably the hardest, which is, your husband probably already knows it, but the first one is to share that fear with your husband. That takes superhuman vulnerability, and it could be you do it by writing a journal or writing him a letter or writing him a note, although maybe that's too heavy on his part. If he takes that, he's like, oh, what's happening? I know a woman who was, unfortunately, she suffered from anorexia, and she had kept it a secret all the years of her husband. She finally sat him down to tell him, and she said, I have something very serious to tell you. And he thought she was going to ask for a get, and she said, I'm anorexic, and I, whatever, and I need to go to a therapist. I thought I had gotten over it as a teen, but I didn't, and whatever. He was so relieved. His wife was an anorexic. Okay. Whatever. It's like, it's a little nuts. But anyways, the thing is that, so you have to be careful how you give it over, not being too melodramatic and, building up this whole thing. You have to do it in a very soft way. But, one of the things that really helps a person be more comfortable in being vulnerable is letting the other person know how vulnerable they feel. So the conversation would go something like this, I just want you to know, I really, really think you're an amazing husband. I'm so happy that I'm married to you. I feel close to you. I feel bonded to you. I feel like I just want to spend my life taking care of you and making you the happiest person ever, like forever. We're going to be together in eternity forever. So I want to get the ball rolling for forever, So I really want to take care of you. But I just want you to know something, that I don't know why. I think it predates you. Maybe it's from my childhood, or, maybe it's how our relationship developed. I don't know exactly. Actually, it might be a good idea to work on that and to try and figure that out. But in any case, you can say, I don't know exactly why I'm like that, but sometimes when we're talking, I feel very anxious in deep emotional conversations. And I realize they're so crucial to closeness. So I feel like, duh, let's go. I don't know what to do. And I figured my first step was to tell you this so that you know what's going on in my head and heart. You don't take it personally, like when I draw away or you say something and I'm like, okay. And I change the subject or whatever it is that you're doing, own up to it and admit it and share it with him and say, or say, I don't even know what my actions are, but I know that I pull away at those times. And I wanted to tell you so that maybe you can help bridge the gap or help make me feel more safe in it. A very vulnerable thing to do. Again, if you can't even imagine yourself saying that, then maybe get a therapist from therapist who's very, and again, I always recommend, when I recommend therapists, you have to say, you might have to go through 3 or 4 different therapists till you find somebody who really jives with you, who really, stims, that's going to help you to fulfill your slayness in this area. And also when you go into therapy, always say, this is what I want to work on. If you say, well, I'm not happy. I mean, it's so vague that you might be in there for 3 years, So, but if you come in and say, I want to work on closeness with my husband, and I realize when we have deep conversations, it makes me anxious and, or it makes me, I have a hard time with it. I feel uncomfortable. Can you help me work on comfortability? It could be CBT. Is that what's called? Cognitive behavioral therapy. Where, they might have different tricks up their sleeve to help you with that. The other thing that you can do, and this is very, very crucial, is to try and do some introspection. And again, this is all Masalas Yesharim of how to grow in your character traits and be the best person you want to be. Which is to do some introspection and why you're like this. What part is making you nervous? Is it from your, childhood? Is it from, past relationships, your relationship with your sister who just never, who always put you down in the middle of these types of things? Whatever it is, doing that kind of introspection to try and figure out what is behind it will help you a lot to be able to get on the other side of it. And the last thing is to recognize how, that it's not just that it would be, wouldn't it be lovely if you were able to have deep emotional conversations? Wouldn't that be nice? That's not what this is about. This is crucial. This is crucial to your closeness with your husband, is to be able to have deep, emotional, vulnerable conversations with him. So this needs to go on way, way up on your priority list. I wish you the best of luck with it. Hashem should bench you with koyach to discover what's blocking you and to get on the other side of it so you can have ultimate closeness with your husband.
Tali asks, I am expecting, Baruch Hashem, but I have hyperemesis, which is extreme nausea and vomiting. I can't do a lot of things I used to do. Even spending time with my husband is hard to get along making supper, let alone making supper. What is one small thing I can do to connect when I barely can get out of bed? It's hard.
So there's a thing, if a person gets out of bed in a grouchy mood, sometimes we all get off on the wrong side of the bed, right? So you get up and you're in a grouchy mood and you push it, you don't talk to anybody, you walk around, you grump, you open the door, you slam the drawer, you open your medicine cabinet, you pull things out, whatever. And you're just like grump city, okay? And then you walk into the kitchen and they say, good morning, like, hi, whatever. Okay. That is called, you're in a grumpy mood and you took it out on everybody. How's this for an alternate reality? You're in a grumpy mood. You totally recognize you're in a grumpy mood. And the first thing you do is you go into just wherever your husband is, if he's there, he's in another room, whatever, and you say, I just want you to know, for some reason, I woke up in a grumpy mood. It's not your fault. I don't want to take it out on you. Don't take it personally. Hopefully I'll get out of it. I'm trying to, listen to some nice music or listen to a shir that of my favorite lecture, whatever. I'm trying to get out of it, but I just want you to know, don't take it personally. Okay. And he says, okay. And then you can go and slam the drawers and open the thing and do whatever else you do. But that's a choice to connect. So with this, I forget the name of the thing that you have, whatever, the nausea, but that I can get and relate to. So you have that, okay. But if you were to say, oh, I'm feeling really nauseous now. I'm really happy that you're in the house right now because I'm feeling out of sorts. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm sorry I can't do more for you. I'm sorry I can't do acts of chesed for you, acts of kindness and take care of you and get you water, whatever. I'm just trying to deal. I'm in survival mode, but you should know I still want to feel close to you. I still do feel close to you. I want to be connected to you, but all I can do is tell you I want to be connected to you. I can't do any actions to show it, but you just know where my heart is. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to melt. He's going to melt. So yes, you may not be able to do more to show your connection, but you can certainly verbalize that in a way that will melt his heart. Very good question. Okay,
great. And Refuah Shlema. Okay. Talia asks, my husband often travels for work, sometimes 2 weeks at a time. We're good about Facetiming, but we small talk more than actually connect. How can we connect better electronically? A lot of good connecting questions. Yeah.
What'd you say?
A lot of good connecting questions.
Yeah. This is fantastic. That's not easy. And also your logistics of your life aren't easy. So yasher koach on even with given so what is it? You're handed lemons and you make lemonade. So, whatever it is, it's for a purpose. Hashem gives us all of these challenges for our own good and our own benefit to reach our shlemus. We don't know what they are. Sometimes they're very hard. This one's challenging. But there are ways to connect differently on electronically. One is if you can do it in a time, set aside time so that you're not, you're talking to your husband and meanwhile, oh yeah, you take that lunch to school and oh yes. And, you're having a 10 minutes of husband time and literally 8 of them are children time or somebody else time, or, you're talking to the housekeeper or talking to the gardener. Does everybody have housekeepers and gardeners? I'm in America, so sorry. Okay. So, you're talking to, your neighbor company happens to drop in and borrow something and you're like, oh yeah, okay. So the first most important thing is to block out all distractions as much as humanly possible. Obviously there's emergency situations, but that's the key to connecting electronically is having no distractions. I'm sure all of us have been on the phone with somebody and they're like, oh yeah. And you're pouring out your heart and they go, oh yeah. Okay. I'll be there in a second, whatever. You're like, oh, I thought we were together. Oh, I guess not. I guess you're not really with me, So that's the number one thing. The second thing, and this is very, very crucial, is that your husband knows this about you. Like tell him, if you were to say, oh, we only talk logistics and I'm unhappy with the way things are, that's not going to go very well. Any complaining and whatever, try and have this conversation with him when it's not electronic, when you're with him together and say, I realize sometimes, and maybe it's just me, maybe you're fine with it, whatever. So yeah, I feel like electronic is a little bit challenging. Do you have any ideas about how we can make it better? Like, I'm not quite sure. Like, is telling, maybe you ask me how I feel about things. Like if when I'm telling you, Moshe went to the school and he came back and he forgot his lunch and he also forgot to bring his homework home and I'm really having a struggle with it and whatever. And you're giving me solutions. Maybe let's have a secret code where you say, how did you feel about that? So that instead of me just rattling off what happened, I'm also sharing with you its effect on me and sharing my internal, gears and turns and whatever that's going on in my brain. Maybe that will make us feel more connected. And again, here for those listening to the podcast, I'm taking my hands and cupping them and handing them to the husband and say, here's the issue. I'd like solutions. Do you have any ideas? Do you have any solutions for them? So, brainstorming different ways that you can, make the connection better by asking that question of, how do you feel about it? Or saying, do you have anything, maybe at the end saying, do you have anything else you want to say? What else do you want to talk about? So I don't feel like we're rushing off the phone. That makes me feel stressed out and makes me feel like, this is just ticking off something on our task list rather than a real deep connection. And the third thing, and this is really, really important to understand, is that a woman's ability and desire and need and passion for connecting is very different from a man's. A man can hear a bunch of logistic stuff and be fine. Okay, we talked, yeah, goodbye. Whereas a wife needs the emotional support, she needs the spiritual guidance, she needs the logistics direction on what she's dealing with, all these things. You turn to the king. The queen can. The queen's bringing all the issues to the king. Now, the queen also can solve things and figure things out, and we're powerhouses, and we're empowered, and we're what's the word I'm looking for? Capable, of accomplishing and multitasking and doing many things. I'm not taking any of our power away, but I am saying that a man needs to feel that he's in control and he's the king of the home. And one way to do that is to, certain things. You need his emotional support, his guidance, when you say to a husband, I really don't know what to do, whatever. And he says, listen, instead of having the people over and then going to the event, why don't you go to the event and have them come back after, right? And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then you take his advice, okay? It was good advice, bad advice, not whatever. It doesn't matter. But then you come back to him and say, after the whole thing happens, 5 times, 10 times afterwards, you say, you're a genius. That was so helpful. Having them come after meant that I didn't have to clean the whole house first. They came and, whatever it is, any advice that he gives you, the more you shower him with appreciation for it, the more manly he'll feel, the more strong he'll feel, the more kingly he'll feel. Is that a word? Kingly, I feel kingly, maybe, who knows, whatever. He'll feel like a king, okay? And he'll grow in his own stature. His income will go up. His stature will go up. His self-esteem will go up. And you have that in your hands to do. So the bottom line for all these things is to, work very hard on the overall picture of your relationship, and then the electronics is going to go better. And have this kind of conversations with him ongoingly, because telling a guy one time one thing, forget about it. It's like in this ear, out that ear, done. So you might have to repeat yourself or ask him again, to tailor it in a different way, couch it in a different way. But in Meretz Hashem, with the attitude that you want to be closer to him, he will feel that. We know from Chazal that what comes from your heart will reach somebody else's heart, and in this case, for sure. Okay, very, very good. Okay, what else we got from Gila?
Okay, great. So Shifra asks, recently when I've tried confiding in my husband, I'm left unsatisfied. He just doesn't seem to really understand me. So I've been turning to others, mainly my sister, who's so much better of a listener and truly knows how to make me feel better. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's a chazal that says a woman's need. I'm bad at memorizing these things, but a women's need is to be by the well and schmooze with her mother, her family, and her sisters and her friends, or something like that. Why is that? Because everyone knows, right? This thing I've said this before, but whatever. It's worth repeating that everyone knows that women were given 9/10 of speech. Well, if you use it all on your husband, you'll kill the poor guy, right? You have to be careful. Manage yourself. So the thing is, sometimes, like you're something terrible happens. The plumber comes and he fixes it and whatever, and you told him to come at 10 and he came at 11 and whatever, and you're all mad. And then you tell your husband that he came an hour late and he didn't fix it and whatever, and your husband will say, well, that's how these things usually are. No? You tell a girlfriend, and she's like, oh, I would never hire that plumber again. You should fire him. You should, in an hour of your time, it doesn't even realize it, blah, 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 And then if it's a really good friend, they'll, after they get you, they bond with you and make you feel like, oh, okay, even though maybe it's flushing hard about the plumber, but if they don't know who the plumber is, whatever. Anyways, you know what I'm saying? Somebody who totally gets your frustration. But then if it's a really good friend, they'll say something like, the plumber probably is totally stressed out. Everybody, Erev Yontif, all of the sinks back up and clog up because everybody's in their kitchen cooking, So, you gotta give him some laxity for that. And, and I hear it, whatever. So then by the time you go and report this whole incident to your husband, you've already kind of, 70% of your rage is dissipated, So that is definitely, it's worth doing. It is doing. And it's not that your husband doesn't get it. Women and men are different. And they process things differently. So it is very good to have friends, girlfriends, sisters, mothers, to be able to bounce stuff off so that you get a lot of your frustrations out. And I think that that'll help with your show and bias, because you won't be, venting at your husband at the top of your lungs. You'll have already gotten the story out 7 times. You have 7 girlfriends, whatever. By the time it comes to him, you're just sort of telling matter of fact, this is what happened. Very, very good question. And good. Okay, good. What else you got, Kayla?
Okay, so someone kind of had a similar question, but the opposite. So Bean asks, I have the opposite problem with Shifra. My husband always says that he's left unsatisfied when he confides in me, and it makes me feel terrible. I've asked him how I can do better, and he always says, I don't know, and then brushes it off and says, it's all good. I don't need to worry about it. What am I supposed to do? I feel so frustrated.
So at a time when both of you are well fed, well rested, and you're having a heart-to-heart conversation, which you need to be having at least once a week, even, the Gedolim will say 10 minutes a day of connecting, that could be logistics, it could be, whatever, but at least once a week, you need to have a very deep heart-to-heart. So when you're in this heart-to-heart conversation with your husband, you need to say to him, listen, the most important job I have in my life is listening to you and having you feel heard. That's like, I know taking care of our 11 children and, working full time and, making sure the house is organized, that's my job. But my most important job is taking care of you. And I don't know how to do it. So I'm putting both of my heels in the ground and putting my foot down. You have got to help work with me to figure out how to have you feel listened to. And it could be, and then, maybe you'll be brainstorming back and forth. And you could say this, but you have to be very delicate to say this following thing, which is, I heard that if a person grew up not being heard, then they have a pattern of feeling like no one ever hears them. So I want to break that. I want to be the go-to person. I want to be the one to break that pattern that you may have had, if that's what it came from. If it isn't from your childhood, I'm not going there. But if it is, I want to be the person that breaks that, because the most important thing in my life is to make you feel heard. And I need you to help me to figure out how to do that. And if you can't figure it out and I can't figure it out and we can't figure it out, we got to get a third party involved to figure out how to get you heard, because I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm not letting this okay, it's fine. Don't worry about it. No, that's not acceptable. I don't agree. When you say, the words come out of your mouth, I'm fine, it's fine, don't worry about it. I'm going to say, no, it's not fine. I want you to feel heard. It's the most important project in my life. It's the most important priority in my life. So let's get to it. So be a rock about this. Don't let him get away with saying, no, it's fine, because you're not feeling the satisfaction of being there for him. And he isn't learning how to connect with you more. And it's crucial that you connect and that he feels heard. It's but this isn't something you say, oh, okay. No, this is where, people say, oh, she's, a strong woman and powerful. This is where you use all of your questions, all of your strength, use on this to make sure he feels heard. Good luck with you. Hashem should bench you with this important mission. Okay.
Okay. Last question of this segment is, Serena says the high holidays brings about a lot of stress for everyone, my husband and I included. Any tips to riding this month smoothly?
Planning ahead. You know when the meals are, who's coming, what's happening for the most part. Okay. 95%, you might have extra guests. Things might switch last minute. A kid gets sick and you don't go there. And now you don't have food in the house, so there's all that. But for the most part, you can plan very well in advance. We've known that we know what the dates are 100 years, whatever. So that means that instead of making a kugel, you make 10 kugels and freeze the other. Well, nobody likes frozen food. Well, they are now. That's the only thing that's going to work in your life. That's what you do. It tastes like freezer burn. Good luck. Enjoy the freezer burn. If you want to pour some salt on it or some sugar, here's a cup of sugar. Pour it over your kugel because it's freezer burned. Okay. By the way, if you use foil and plastic, best so you get tips here at the Ladies Talk Show. That often prevents freezer burn. But anyhow, the point is that just plan ahead. That's the way to get it. And it's also planning ahead for time together, planning ahead for as much, whatever you can plan. And, that means like if you have to set the table a week in advance and eat in the kitchen the whole time, and whatever, that's what you have to do to have everything go as smoothly as possible. The more planning you do, the better the actual day-to-day thing. And if you're not a planner, I totally get it, because many people are like, oh no, everything in our house is like, and those kinds of people, guess what? That's where everybody last minute shows up for Shabbos, for a Yontif meal, because, they know that person didn't plan and they didn't know how much food to cook because they didn't know what was coming, So being a non-planner doesn't mean you're less than. Many times a non-planner can do a lot more types of chesed than a planner can. But in terms of being able to connect with your husband, the best thing to do is to plan as much as you can and carve out time to be together, just the two of you. After the kids are asleep or whatever, just carve it out. Okay, very, very good question. Okay, so the homework is that to do one time this week, do some kind of introspection, whatever's blocking you from closeness to your husband and connecting with your husband, to think about whether it's something from your past, whether it's it predates your husband, whether it's in your mind, whether it's in your husband, whether it's a relationship issue, whether it's another relationship, whether it's to do the introspection necessary to be able to get on that's the kind of the first step to be able to get on the other side of it, to be able to connect more deeply. Okay, this is Leah Richheimer with the Ladies Talk Show. We're in chapter 9, connecting deeply, and we're going deeper and deeper next show. We'll see you then. If you want more, we have so much more. If you want to learn our Masorah and have an awesome marriage, the first thing we have is a coaching program. If you are awesome with people and you want to know the Masorah better than 99% of the people on the planet Earth, like for reals, okay? It's a 4-month program. It's very intense. We have major scholarships, and we have somebody who's granted in a lot to pay for a big bulk of it. It's still a little expensive, but for what you get, and then you can start charging money to know it. That's the coaching program. Don't miss it. Go to www.ladiestalkshow.com. We do retreats. We do all kinds of stuff. You'll find it there. www.ladiestalkshow.com. Thanks for being with us. Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show.